Well, I think that Brian wants to put a bow on last year's rally and, of course, talk about what was good and what was not so good and what boys were good and what boys were not so good.
Yeah, last year the rally really was very narrow at the beginning, and then it began to widen towards the end. And when we were approaching around, Christmas time, people were getting a little excited about the prospects of a Santa Claus rally. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, the Santa Claus rally is typically thought of as the last 5 trading days of one year and then the first 2 of the next. And just historically, the market has been up 1.6%-ish during that period of time, but that's on average. There's a lot of dispersion around that. Sometimes it's down, sometimes it's up a lot more. And so when coming out of the Fed meeting that was in the middle of the month, the market began to rally. People thought, this can really continue and we can continue the party. But so far, it kind of feels like it's been a little bit of a lump of coal.
A lump of coal and perhaps a bit of a hangover.
Yes, I think that's a good way to put it. Maybe we pre-partied a little bit too much, and so now we have that New Year's hangover, so you have to make sure you stay hydrated and take your ibuprofen. Right. But the market ended up down, based on the S&P 500, about 1% during that last 5 days and first 2 of 2024. So Santa Claus, unfortunately, did not deliver so far.
Yeah, but let's talk about what was really good, and that, of course, was a great year in many of the indices in 2023.
It really was. When we look at, say, the NASDAQ, so that is one of the many indicators, tends to be more technology-focused. That was up 45% for the full year. And interestingly, the flip that we saw during this Santa Claus non-rally is that tech was leading the way down. We had
but let's just say that this Magnificent Seven, right, of the 500, the big 7, which was Alphabet, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, those companies really were part of the rally. So, giving some of that back is what we did see.
And giving a small part of it back, which is, I think, somewhat painful for people who went in and maybe tried to chase last year's winners. And that is one of, I think, cautionary tales, is just because they did really well all of last year, all of a sudden, if you jumped in at, let's say, mid-December or around Christmas time, you suddenly experienced, I think, if just this past week, technology was down about 4%, so a rather significant decline.
So we go into 2024 hoping for some successes in places that we did see rallies in, which of course were the other 493 stocks and bonds. Bonds did pretty well last year.
They did. Yeah, it really seemed a bit treacherous. If you think of the July to October period, it looked like we were going to have like another lost year for bonds. After a miserable 2021, 2022, things were kind of choppy, but staying positive until we got to around the end of July, beginning of August. And that is when you saw the 10-year Treasury nearly get to 5%. Thankfully, it came back down. Now we're experiencing some choppiness. So year to date, we've seen a big swing in yields. But on our investment committee, the way we're talking about it is that bonds aren't boring, but they can be very beneficial still in a portfolio, especially with that coupon income. It's a much better coupon now.
And not only that, Brian, of course, we have interest rates expected to go down throughout 24 and perhaps even into 25. So to wrap this all up, if you will, we're talking about a reporting season that starts here in just a week or so, and the comparisons are pretty easy.
Yeah, it really is. If you think about, we did not have an economic recession. But we did have a couple earnings recessions, down quarters for corporate earnings. It makes the year-on-year comparisons a little bit easier. And when we're going into earnings season, which really starts this upcoming Friday with the big banks reporting, expectations are fairly modest. I was reading a report from FactSet, and it said that over the last few months, people have lowered their expectations by about 7 to 8% for earnings. So a lot of people have lowered the bar that these companies need to clear in order to beat expectations.
So as we set up 2024, lots to do. And of course, that really means that we need to look at your portfolio and understand what you own, why you own it, and how much you're paying for it.